There really is something wrong with the left. I mean, you already knew that, but get a load of this. Last week, United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, a husband and father of two boys, was gunned down in New York. Why? Well, because he was the CEO of a big company. And the left, well, they cheered. Now, the founder of a socialist apparel brand. I don't know what socialist apparel looks like. I guess it comes in communist grey. But this guy has called for the death of corporate executives, and now he's planning to sell a deck of cards featuring America's most wanted CEOs. The cards will apparently have the names and faces of various business bosses with gun sight targets on them. Seriously, sometimes I just shake my head. Joining me is Sky News contributor Kosha Garda. Kosha, I'd like to think this isn't actually happening, but we've already seen a number of people from the left try and justify the murder of this health insurance company. What on earth is wrong with people?
I think, as you said, James, this really has become a sick society, unfortunately, in some parts, for people to transfer their issues with the healthcare system or the unaffordability of insurance in the U.S. onto, okay, the end goal here is go out and take out the symbol of that, who's a CEO who worked his way up, by the way, came from a very humble background, this person. And the shooter was somebody quite privileged, which goes against their framework. And then this deck of cards and all that, I think, it's very interesting because what I also saw was silent was the calls for gun control that always happen after a crime in the U.S. That was very, very silent. And I do think these CEOs are going to either voice their opinions more and shift possibly to the right, or at least, crime control, as well as have better security if this is going to become a thing now. And it really will depend on what the outcome is of this case with Luigi. Well,
you mentioned better security, and security firms in the US have said they have been inundated by Fortune 500 companies wanting security for their CEOs. And a whole lot of other businesses have wiped their websites so that there's no names of CEOs available to the public because they're taking these threats so seriously. You just could not believe in 2024 we've got a situation where one group of people are so envious of others that they're actually proposing it's okay to go out and kill them.
Yeah, it's envy. It's the breakdown of just law and order and enforcement of the law, vigilantism, and everything in between. And it feels like a dystopian novel, but I hope things are going to turn around just with the platform of the incoming administration trying to be tough on crime, and hopefully that trickles down. But this is pretty scary stuff.
Well, you talk about being tough on crime. I tell you who's not being tough on crime right now, and that's US President Joe Biden. He's really going for it in his last few days in office. During the 4 years that he's been the president, and mind you, he's got 4 weeks to go, he's pardoned or commuted the sentences of more than 8,000 people, including, of course, his son Hunter. Now, the only other presidents who come close to pardoning or commuting that many people, if you ignore Jimmy Carter pardoning Vietnam War draft evaders, is Lyndon B. Johnson and Barack Obama, who issued around 2,000 pardons each. Trump, by comparison, pardoned only 237 people in his first term. But Joe Biden, 8,000 people, including a Chinese national who was caught with something like 40,000 child porn images. And then he's commuted the sentences of a whole lot of business bosses who ripped off $5 billion from about 1 million victims. What on earth is Joe Biden playing at?
I looked it up, and since the turn of the century, 1900, till now, there have been something like 22,000 acts of clemency. So this is about 35% of that. 35% of what's happened in the last century and a half has come now. And it really is interesting because it stinks to high heaven. The power, presidential power, is unilateral. Whether we like it or not, it is unilaterally his prerogative to do. But it stinks to high heaven in terms of that scale, because what does it mean if you take it to its logical endpoint? It either means that there's all these people, 8,000 people, who were over-sentenced or over-prosecuted, and so what's wrong with the criminal justice system if that's true?
Right.
Or there are all these people who actually have committed crime, and he's paving the way by doing these early ones now. He still has 35 days to go. Who's coming? Is it Fauci? Is it his brother? Is it himself? That's going to be the big one. If that happens, big news that day.
And a lot of people really do think he will issue preemptive pardons to people like Anthony Fauci. And the thing about the Democrats is for years now I've been thinking, no, they wouldn't do that. They wouldn't prosecute Trump. They wouldn't. And every time they surprise me, so you wouldn't put it past them issuing a preemptive pardon for someone like Anthony Fauci, which would just be wild. Hey, before I let you go, there's one thing I've got to ask you, and I'm sure you have the answer because someone must. All of these drones over New Jersey and New York, there's wild theories going around. And I guess the wild theories have been given opportunity because the White House are saying, no, there's nothing to see here. But Americans are used to the White House lying. I mean, they said the border was secure and closed. So there's all these wild theories and speculation. What's the speculation and what's your bet about these drones that keep being seen?
You know, I wish I knew. In the absence of actual information, all we can do is speculate on the spectrum. So it goes from the least nefarious hobbyists, which most people have ruled out, it doesn't look like that, to something commercial, like the Amazons and Walmarts of the world trying to perfect their same-day delivery, probably not that, to foreign governments, which the Pentagon has ruled them out, but nobody, to your point, trusts government agencies anymore, really, to the U.S. government, which is probably the most likely, if I had to pick a, James, where they're training for warfare, and drones are going to be a big key part of the future of warfare. Is it something like that? And of course, the most sinister at the end of the spectrum is UFOs. And I think that has probably been ruled out too, but there's lots of people interjecting that into the mix.
I'll tell you the most recent one is Joe Rogan is now saying that he reckons the government are flying these drones looking for some sort of radiation leak or something like that. And of course, who knows? But the White House have created this speculation by not just being upfront with people and having the last 4 years where, Karine Jean-Paul, you never believe anything she says at the White House. Kosher Garda, appreciate your time tonight.